Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Houston Element Podcast. My name is Missy, and I'm your host. And today, I'm living my best life, and I hope you guys are too. If you're watching this, oh man, okay, we're reliving history, legend. Okay, we're here with voice actor and also board member of a local anime Texas convention that is all over Texas, the one and only Mr. J. Hickman.
Wow, what a lovely introduction. Thank you, Missy.
It's a pleasure to have you, man, on our humble platform. Like, I'm trying to keep it professional, but I'm really inside just geeking out.
Well, if may I make a suggestion?
Of course.
If you normally keep it professional on the podcast, you could mix things up a little bit, like by letting your inner emotions out. Like, let's see what happens. What's the worst that could possibly happen?
True. This is true. I'm unapologetically myself. That is for certain. So, I just try to do good and hope that it gets received as such.
Great. Well, I'd say we're off to a great start then.
Fantastic, man. Fantastic, man. So you've been at this a long time. Like you're a pioneer, sensei level with this. So really, truly, you know what I'm saying? I'm both audio and linguist, nerd. So you feed all of that, in one beautiful fandom. So how did you get started in this career?
It's a fun story. I don't want to eat up too much of our time together. It's lengthy but worthwhile. I started, as with many of my colleagues in the world of voice acting, I started in a different medium of acting, mostly with theater. There are a lot of us that have backgrounds in theater, and so I had sort of got started in high school. Joining the cast of our spring musical or whatever was a good way to meet girls, and that was interesting to me, and it seemed to go well. So I kept up with that through high school and continued in college. There were numerous opportunities in college to do kind of like a open to everyone sort of drama or musical. So I did some of those, and while in college, I was meeting other cast members that were graduate students while I was an undergrad. So I was working with some, older actors by a couple years, and they were, not only pursuing their graduate degrees at this university, but also out in the world already doing their thing. And so, I was able to get some advice from them, and, a couple of them had an agent, and I was like, how does that all work? And so I got some basic advice on how you kind of pursue a career. And so I got, shortly out of college, I knew how to get an agent. I got an agent, and I started here in Houston working with an agent and getting, local TV commercials, radio commercials, lots of industrial training videos. Those were a big part of the beginner actors' bread and butter. And I was kind of making a go of that for a couple of years. That was my kind of fledgling career when in the back of the Houston Press, a periodical that may be familiar to you, there was one ad, and there was an ad for wanted actors to provide cartoon voices. And I was like, wow, that sounds right up my alley. That sounds amazing. So I called this number. I got voicemail. I left my name and number, and never heard back. Not a word. So be it. No big deal. I'm still a professional actor. I'm doing my thing. Everything's fine. A couple months later, I see another ad in the back of the paper, not identical, but similar actors to do voice acting, cartoons, what have you. And I was like, that sounds exciting. I called that number. I left my name and number, and never heard back. So be it. Whatever. I'm moving on, onward and upward. Mm-hmm. So fast forward a few months, I'm visiting my girlfriend's apartment. We're having lunch, and she is leafing through the paper, and she gets to the back page when she exclaims, "Oh, look, there's an ad for actors to do cartoon voices. This would be perfect for you. I'm like, oh yeah, thanks. I think we've already tried that. I don't think if it's the same ad as I answered before, I don't think it's meant to be. She's like, oh, and she was also a performer. She was an opera singer or training at the time, getting her graduate degree locally in Houston in vocal performance. And so I was like, I think I'll pass. And she's like, well, I think I might call them. I'm like, okay, you should call them. Absolutely. Like she's a performer and actress. I'm like, yeah, give it a go. So she picks up her cordless phone there in the kitchen and she's like, beep, boop, beep, 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 waiting. And I'm waiting for her to, leave her voicemail so we can get on with our day. And she's like, ring, 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 ring. Yes. Hello. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, I was. Oh, great. Okay. Good. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yes, I do. Mm-hmm. A little bit of experience. Yes. Okay. Well, that'd be super. Yeah, this Friday is fine. 2:00. Yeah, 2:00 is fine. Oh, great. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yes, here's my name. Here's my information. Uh-huh. Great. And what do I need to bring? How do I prepare? Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. Well, great. Okay. Well, super. Thank you so much. I guess we'll see you Friday. Okay. All right. Superb. Oh. Before I hang up, I'm here with my boyfriend who is amazing at doing voices and oh no. Oh, okay. All right. Oh, I understand. Okay. Well, thanks anyway. I appreciate it. All right. See you Friday. Click. And I'm just sitting there like, what in the world? Yeah. Just happened. And she said, they said they didn't want any guys. They're just casting actresses right now. I'm like, oh, well, all right. Can't argue with that, I guess. I'm like, well, congrats. She's like, so listen, look, I have no idea what I'm doing. Will you come with me to this thing on Friday? I'm like, yes, boyfriend of the year. I will come with you to your audition. So Friday at 2:00 rolls around and we pull up. It's park. It's just like a bunch of flat square buildings all lined up along this street. And we walk in this suite number, whatever it was. And it turns out it is the home office for ADV Films, which was at the time the largest producer and distributor of English language anime in the entire country, right here in Houston, Texas. It was a very nondescript building, like nobody knew about it. And we walk into a very typical kind of audition waiting room. It's a room like 12 by 12. There are seats all around the edge. And then a hallway leading off somewhere. And so I take a seat, a couple minutes go by, someone comes down the hallway. It's a production assistant with the clipboard, and she is going around. She's like, and you are, and gets to us and takes my girlfriend's name information. She's like, here are your audition scripts. Just go over those and we'll be calling you back in about 5 minutes. And we're like, great. So she leaves. We run audition scenes together. So I feel like she's ready. She's in good shape. And 5 minutes later, they call her back and off she goes. And so a few people leave, a few people come in, sit in the waiting room while I'm sitting there. And the production assistant comes back by with her clipboard and she's walking around to the new people and you are. And she gets to me and stops again. And she's like, were you, are you auditioning? I'm like, no. And she's like, oh, had you been planning to? Did you want to? I'm like, oh my God, I would love to, but I understood you were all full up, basically. She's like, well, we are running a little bit ahead today, so I might be able to squeeze in if you like. I'm like, oh my gosh, that would be incredible. Like, yes, please. She's like, all right, let me see what I can do. Just in case, give me your name and stuff, and here's some audition scripts. I'm like, thanks so much. And then my name gets called. And so I go back to the recording booth, and it's a pretty classic setup. Like I'm in a glass booth, like 2.5 to 3 feet by 3 feet. and we are auditioning. The director explains we're auditioning for a scene from Dirty Pair. And so I'm just like a fighter pilot. And the scene we're doing just has a bunch of screaming, like we're getting attacked on all sides and there's just lots of yelling. And that was pretty much the audition. And they're like, great, thanks a lot. I'm like, okay, thanks, I guess. So I left. And about a week later, I got a call from ADV Films and they wanted me to come in to do a teeny tiny bit part for a new show called Master of Musketon. It was a vampire comedy anime. You have those because it's anime. So my role was called British Communications Officer. This guy had exactly one line, and then he immediately died, and that was it. And they're like, "Great job." Thanks so much. I'm like, thank you. This is great. And I left. And so like 2 weeks later, I got a call again from ADV Films, and they wanted me to come in for a slightly larger, teeny tiny role. And so I did that. And it just slowly grew from there to where we are today. Just to wrap the story, the denouement, if you will, my girlfriend, who went through all the proper channels, never received a call. But later, I married her. So she's got that going for her. So happy ending, I guess. And that, Missy, is how I got started in anime.
Wow, man. That's pretty metal. Like,
yeah, you did ask. That's what happened.
Wow. And how amazing that you got to find a partner that is not only your best friend, but also an incredible artist, like that you get to share that. That's so fantastic.
Yeah, it's been remarkable. On so many levels. It's so funny too with, like she is a world class singing talent. Like it's humbling sometimes. Mm-hmm. I do a bit of singing as well, and so people will sometimes be like, "Oh, it's so romantic. Like, do you sing to each other?" I'm like, "We do not." When we get home, like we want to take the night off from performing usually, and just sort of. But yeah, there's lots. I mean, there's lots of richness there. Like we're able to talk about the world of performing arts on a slightly different level for people that aren't in the industry, and so we have some of that kind of simpatico there. So it's cool.
Wow. Do you guys have different theories when it comes to vocal trainings, like her as a musician, as a singer, and you as a voice actor? Or do you share similar theories?
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say it's different. I think she has had way more training in kind of vocal pedagogy and understanding how the voice works and how to treat it like a pristine instrument as it is. So I defer to her in all the theories. I guess the differences come in. She actually practices it and I don't. So It's different in practice, but not in theory, I don't think. But it's been super interesting kind of because, I'll do some singing. It's rare at this point, but occasionally I'll have a live vocal performance. And I know, like I took voice lessons too from great teachers, and I know how to prepare my voice, and I know how to warm up, and I know how to, moisturize and make sure the pipes are ready, so I can give my very best performance. But I reserve that for singing performances. And it had never occurred to me, like I was probably a year into anime voice work before it ever occurred to me, like, I'm using my voice in a similar way, and sometimes I have to raise my voice for extended periods of time. And oh my gosh, it's getting tired. And oh my gosh, my voice is cracking all of a sudden. Like, how is this happening? I'm just talking. And so it had to dawn on me that, like, oh, maybe I should be preparing my voice in the same way as I do for a singing concert. So that was kind of a useful revelation. But yes, I'd say now kind of, we're aligned on, how to take care of your instrument and get the most out of it when it's time to do that in whatever venue we're performing.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm glad, and thank you for explaining that so eloquently, way more eloquent than I could ever do, because I don't have y'all's expertise and experience. But as a consumer of going to live performances, I've noticed, some, especially with rock singers, they do a lot of singing and gurgling. They may go to a show and you're like expecting to hear that raw scream you hear in the album, and then maybe it comes out a little shorter or a little softer, a little slighter key. And it's probably because, like you said, they're trying to conserve their energy for that whole tour they're about to do.
Exactly. Yeah. In the studio, you can take a day for a single track and then go off and kind of get ready for the next one. So yeah, I don't mean to diminish what it's like in the studio. I know it can be grueling. I've done some recording as well, but there's at least an opportunity to be fresh for every track and give it, really, really blast it out there. Whereas, on tour, I can only imagine like you've got to last for the full 3 hours plus encore or whatever. So, I get holding back a little bit.
Wow. Like that is impressive. And these are things that, excuse me, speaking of, these are things, that we don't appreciate about you guys maybe, or know about you guys, as voice actors. We're thinking, oh, whatever. They just, do the voice of such and such, they just have that talent, but they don't think about the journey y'all went to get to where you are.
Yeah, I think there's value in understanding that. And also at the same time, I appreciate people that are able to enjoy it on a more superficial is the wrong word, but on a level that doesn't consider all of the background stuff. Like, I think it's nice when the performances can stand on their own. And if we're able to generate a performance that reaches out and touches someone in their living room while they're watching and contributes to the story and helps move the story forward, I think that's terrific. Like, I don't know that much more thought needs to be put into it. I think, if you are thinking about, I wonder what all went into this. Like, I think that's a worthy kind of thought experiment to have, but not necessarily. Like, I like that people can enjoy this art form on multiple levels. You don't always need to know how the sausage is made, although, it's interesting.
I'm just, a curious cat, and audio and language, because music is a language, all that stuff. Just like I nerd out on that. So I guess I'm just the weirdo, the alien that's always like, I go to people's studio and I'm like, oh, the musicians, but I'm looking at their audio racks. I'm like,
Sure.
All that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I think it's worthwhile to be curious about that. That's how we learn. Exactly. Lifelong learning, Missy.
Yes, sir, man. So is there any kind of special or specific practices you do before you going into the studio to do a session?
Not anything real special in it. Normally I will know. Well, there's lots of stuff I don't know before I go in, but I can guess. Mm-hmm. Like, they don't share a lot with us before we get there about what we're going to be a part of and what our role is in it. So I don't really know much about my character or what's going to be demanded of me to bring that character to life. But I can generally tell, like, if I book a session, like if they say director so-and-so needs you for 8 hours for this show, or 12 hours for this show, then I know we're talking about, kind of a larger supporting character getting into lead character. And, sometimes we'll book, we might book a session that is 4 hours long. Like we'll do the whole afternoon. That's just me with this one character. And so if I'm going in for something like that, then I know to be better prepared and kind of brace myself and have warmed up well. And then, before we started, obviously, the directors will prepare you and make sure you know what you're getting in for. You learn about the character, you learn about their temperament, and so you can get a sense of what you're going to be doing. Sometimes a lot of the recording is, we do plenty of slice of life anime, and I'll play a dad of the protagonist, and I'm just talking at kind of this level, this tone for most of the recording session. And that doesn't require a whole lot of special preparation. But if we're doing like a kind of a war type anime or a big kind of mecha attacking the earth type thing, and I'm playing a military guy, like there's going to be lots of yelling. And so, I'll know well enough to bring the little honey bear squeeze bottle thing and my own kind of sachet of lemon tea or whatever to get through and do some warm-ups in the car on the way.
So, like for us, when we work in the studio doing music projects, sometimes, the engineer is both engineer and producer. So maybe the artist will bounce off the producer for ideas and such and such. Do you guys as voice actors, do you have any kind of extra, resources available for you at the studio? Or do you bounce off the engineer sometimes if you need additional information?
It's it's really the relationship is between the actor and the director. And so it is it's very rare that it happens occasionally, very rare that the director is running the soundboard. Like it's not in any of the traditional studios that we worked with. Maybe some of the smaller upstarts will have the directors running the board at the same time that you're recording. But almost always you're walking into a situation where you've got out in the kind of soundboard area, you've got the director sitting right next to the sound engineer. You're in the booth. And so, in terms of making sure we're prepared for our session and for the role we have in telling the story, we rely heavily on the director to make sure we're kind of taking the right path. And, it can be, and I think it's at its best when it is a very collaborative process. Sometimes it really depends on the director. Like I've been able to work with lots of different types of directors, and some of them have a very, very clear, even rigid kind of vision in mind for what this show is and how it should play out and how each character has a role in the show in moving the plot forward. And they'll let you know their vision, and your job is to help them fulfill their vision. And so, I'm glad to do that. It's an honor to be there in any circumstance. But frequently I will work with directors who are interested in knowing what I think as the story is unfolding, and as I'm getting to know my character, as after we've been at it for a while, I'll start to kind of absorb the character. Like that's part of my job too. And so I'm starting to learn about him and kind of understanding, kind of maybe picking up on stuff here and there about, I think the character would want to do this here or say this here, or like, I don't know, I don't think the character would say that. It doesn't feel natural. And so I've had the pleasure of working with many directors, several of them I get to work with, currently that, are open to that input, and they want to have it because they are managing a cast of 50 people, or maybe, a show that has 60 to 100 characters. And, they're the CEO of the thing, right? They have to kind of keep their vision has to kind of cover everything. And so they're just scanning out over the horizon and making sure there's no major brush fires. In the meantime, we're down on the ground and carefully curating this one character. And so they want to hear from us oftentimes on, how do you think? What do you think about that? What do you think the character would do? And so, we've got our script. We're reading our script. We've got the lines. And as long as the lines fit technically, like where the mouth flaps are matching and all that jazz, generally it's okay. And, the director will be like, I like that performance, that hit. That was great. But sometimes I might pipe up and I'd be like, would you mind if I tried something different? And I've never had anyone say no to that, because it takes 20 seconds just to record the line one more time. And so, sometimes that yields something good. Like if I'm in a position to feel like maybe we would go a different direction, and I'll try it out, and it's up to the director. Like it either resonates with them or it doesn't. And usually, and again, I work, and I'm incredibly fortunate to work with very kind people. If it doesn't work, they're not going to say that. Like they'll just, after I leave, they'll be like, scrap that second take. We'll go with the first take. Like, and I'm not going to remember. But yeah, so I mean, to your question, it can be very collaborative, and it's a wonderful, it's a wonderful experience in that way, that we get to kind of bounce ideas off each other to hopefully make something better. Sometimes, and I can be a bit impish as well in the booth. So I like to kid around and, leave like a joke take. And very rarely, but occasionally, the director will decide it's worth leaving in the finished product, whatever I said, whatever dumb thing I said, that it was just intended to be a joke for like the next actor that comes in to trip them up or whatever. But sometimes they're like, oh, that's great. Let's leave that in. So sometimes those will actually make it. So yeah, it's a very kind of creative and sometimes experimental process. And it's wonderful in that way.
Wow, man. How exciting. What a wonderful work environment that, you have the support of, your colleagues and your whole team to hear out your ideas and hear each other's. Like, if we could only all be so fortunate.
Right. I mean, it truly is the ideal. I don't think I'm too detached from reality to realize what we have. And it feels like it's almost always been that way. Like, again, I've worked with lots of different people, and I don't, it's the old kind of advice you get, like, walk a mile in someone else's shoes and, kind of be patient, understand that you have no idea what this other person is going through. And so I don't know what it's like to be a director at an anime studio with production schedule and pressure, and this show has to get out in 8 days or whatever it is. So, I acknowledge that I don't understand everything that everyone's going through, but yeah, some directors have kind of sort of established a different work environment, and it is what it is. I mean, you go in and you do your job and you be a professional and give them the best you got and get out. And sometimes, you walk in and you find kind of a warmer, more welcoming and even fun environment, and you work with that. And if you want to, flex your muscles a little bit and you can sense that this is an environment I can do that, then by all means, give it a try. You could accidentally or semi-purposefully contribute to something that's a little better than was intended. And isn't that great? Like, so why not give it a try?
What a fun job. I mean, it's a serious job. It's a hard job. It's a job that requires talent and skill, but very fun. Sounds like.
Yeah, it's it has its demands. But yeah, the rewards are great. It's a dream. It's a dream.
So can you tell us about a special project that you did before, or any kind of, memorable project that you did in the past that you really enjoyed?
Oh, there's tons of stuff. I mean, I've been at it about 25 years now. So it's, there's just been so many amazing kind of milestones along the way. Two kind of seminal moments for me in this field. And one of them was when director Kyle Jones showed up on the scene. You might know Kyle. He was at Anime Houston. He has been with ADV Films and then Sentai for years, all this time, like 20 years now. And so he came from the world of advertising and just got plopped right into serving as an ADR director. And I think his first shows, and he'll back me up on this or correct me happily, but I think his first stuff was live action. Like ADV was getting into some live action stuff from Japan, so both movies and series. And I think one of his first projects was the live action remake of Gamera, the big kaiju film. So Gamera was originally Gamera was from the 60s. It was a kind of a sister-in-law to Godzilla. I think after the popularity of Godzilla had been clear, like producers over there were like, what other monsters could we make? And so they did Gamera, the 200-foot tall fire-breathing turtle. And so in the mid 90s, they did a remake of Gamera, a trilogy, 3 films in Japan that were, for the time, like very slickly produced. Like it was good, strong effects. And like they cast it well, like they told good stories, like they were solid films, and ADV Films got the right to dub them into English. And the second and third of these films they gave to Kyle Jones, like one of his first assignments there was like, here you go. And so he cast me in the second movie. I played Lieutenant Colonel Waterossi. He was like the main military guy on the ground while they're figuring out what's Gamera doing and how can we help Gamera or whatever. So he was a good guy, but military. So kind of, in these movies, usually the military scene is semi-bumbling. So we did this film, and then it was great. It was exciting to be a part of it because it was like, kind of a legendary character, a kaiju film, and we're kind of helping to reintroduce that to American audiences. So that was kind of a cool thing. And then these were all DVD releases, and so they were also looking to the directors for some content for like the DVD extras sections. And like, so there would be maybe a director commentary or a cast commentary. And, they were asking Kyle about stuff that he might consider. And he suggested that they may do a short version, like take the script and really cut it down to the bare bones of the story. To like a 12 to 15 minute version of the film where we redub all of the characters as Texas rednecks. And the producers were like, okay, I guess you could do that. Like, we'll have to get permission from Japan to include it on the DVD, but yeah, you can try it, I guess. So Kyle brought in like small version of the cast, like 6 to 8 people on a Saturday. He also brought in a bunch of pizzas and a cooler of beer, and we just sat around the studio on a Saturday when nothing else was going on, and just ad-libbed our way through a 15-minute version of the movie, just making an absolute mess out of it. It was huge fun, and it was hilarious. Like, it was great. Kyle came to the scene with this kind of warped sense of humor that was very much on my wavelength. Like, we were definitely kind of seeing eye to eye on a lot of stuff, and it was great. John Swasey was there. He was also kind of a key character, and the three of us were just hitting on the same wavelength again and again and again. Like, we were really, something was happening there. There was some movie magic. So anyway, fast forward a few weeks, and the thing is done. And the producers at ADV were just like eye rolling their way through the whole thing. Like, Kyle, like, why did we hire you? Like, I don't know. So anyway, they sent the thing off to Japan to wait for them to give us a yay or nay. And so we're all waiting, like, I don't know. So word came back. Japan said they loved it. And in fact, could we do the whole movie that way? And so next thing you know, we're booking a couple more Saturdays with pizza and beer and like doing the entire film as rednecks. And so this version of the film, which is only the full version of the film, was only released on the box set for Gamera, which contained all three films, including the number 2 film that had this extra. And so it's difficult to find, but Kyle and John Swasey and myself all have copies. And so basically we will take this to conventions and have make a panel around screening the film so we can share that. And so that was, in a roundabout way, to answer your question, like that was one such memory. Like, just creating that thing was so different from anything I had done so far in the world of, obviously anime, because it's not anime, but any kind of recording and ADR work, just because it was so free and even unhinged. Like, we were just doing whatever, and we created something that was actually, quite palatable. Like, it was, real content that people would enjoy. And so it lives here today. And, I think that the most important thing that came out of that was meeting, like, I knew them already, but really getting to know Kyle and John, because the three of us, I think, immediately realized there was something special in that chemistry. And so we have been kind of inseparable ever since, and just doing all sorts of wacky nonsense in that vein. Like, we do lots of that silly stuff. The three of us, because there's just something magic there when the three of us put our twisted minds together. So I hope that answers your question satisfactorily.
Indeed so. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So my final question is about Anime Texas. So I got to attend the Houston event this year recently, and it was wonderful. So can you tell us a little bit more about your involvement in Anime Texas, and a little bit about the convention?
Yeah, sure. So Anime Texas is a convention company that oversees 2 conventions in our state. And so Anime Dallas and Anime Houston. Anime Dallas is actually the older sister. And interestingly, John Swasey started the whole thing. So it was in, John Swasey's a Houston native. I'm a Houston native. And in 2018, he decided to start up a convention, and he did it then for a specific reason. There were a couple of things that led to it, but John is very active on the convention scene, and so he's been to lots of conventions, and even then had been to a lot. Like, he had a lot of experience as a guest at conventions, and so kind of he's sort of just taking mental note at these things, like the convention organizers did this thing. Like, that was pretty cool. Like, I like that. They I haven't seen that before, and these guys did it, and it was cool. Or just some mild criticism, like, it would be so much easier if they would just do this instead of this. Like, I don't know. If ever I were to run a convention, I think it would make more sense to do this instead of this. And so he's just taking notes as he goes. And so in 2017, you may be aware, we had Hurricane Harvey hit Houston and just kind of, everyone was awash in Hurricane Harvey. And so there was lots of work to do to clean the place up afterward. And John at that time was like, maybe our community can help. And so he decided that was kind of the impetus for starting Anime Dallas. He was like, I've been thinking about doing a convention anyway. If I can do it now and it can have a charitable component, we can have proceeds from this event go toward Hurricane Harvey relief. That seems like a good thing. And so he decided to hold it in Dallas for two key reasons. The first of which was Houston was recovering and, there was not a lot of convention space that also wasn't under renovation because of Harvey. And also because, Dallas and Houston both are just huge hubs of anime work. And so between Dallas and Houston, that's where most of the anime in the United States happens, period. And so he knew that there would be a good, strong community of people that could be a part of it. And, many of them had, many of the folks that lived and worked in Dallas in anime had their roots in Houston too. Like ADV Films had really gotten things off the ground back in Houston in the late 90s. And so people had kind of cut their teeth at ADV Films and then gone off to other studios across the country, a lot in Dallas, a lot remained here in Houston to work at Sentai and other studios. So Anime Dallas was launched in 2018. I was honored to be there, and it was a great convention. It was just the things that John had learned and wanted to implement as a convention chair really made a difference. And everyone that was there, particularly our special guests that were there were like, wow, ooh, you know how to run a convention. And John was like, I should hope so. I've been taking lots of notes. And so he put together a really strong team of people that knew how to do stuff. And it was great. And they raised a bunch of money for Hurricane Harvey, and it was cool. And that was the birth of it. And, decided to try it again. And 2019 was even bigger and better. And then in 2021, he decided, he was like, it's time, I think high time to bring this to Houston as well, because we have a huge community of anime fans here. We have a huge, kind of community of professionals from the industry. So that there really should be nothing stopping us from also having an Anime Houston. And so Anime Houston was born in 21. So the one you attended a couple weeks ago was our third year of Anime Houston. And both of them are going great guns. Like, they're just doing really well. And, so we're excited to kind of keep seeing where it's going to head. But so far, that is Anime Texas is the kind of parent company of Anime Dallas and Anime Houston, are two big conventions. And so I was brought on in 2020 as one of the members of the board of advisors. And, it's been just a thrill ride. It's a lot of work, as you might imagine, putting on a convention. But I've been able to work with some amazing people kind of in organizing this thing. I just met some lovely people, super professional, learned a lot. And it's really enriching to be able to kind of create this environment where fans of anime can come and congregate together and meet people that make the stuff and get some sneak peeks of stuff that's coming up, and find vendors who have kind of rare or hard to get kind of merchandise from their favorite shows and all in one place. And it's a wonderful thing to be a part of. And so it's been enriching. And we're excited to keep it going.
What a legacy to build. And then building it with, the people that you admire most, that are you're closest with. Like, that's incredible, man.
It is, without a doubt. It's again, I think that the degree of effort it takes to put on something like this and do it well is pretty heavy lifting. But I don't know if I could do it if it wasn't with people that I genuinely admire. When John asked me to come on board, I was like, absolutely, whatever I can do to help you. So there are rewards to doing it just outside of the relationships that you have. But yeah, I think it was critical that it be someone like John at the helm, who I admire so much on many different levels. And just to know he's steering the ship makes all the difference.
Only the finest out of Houston. Okay, I'm sorry, everyone, but only the finest come out of Houston. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know who you're apologizing to. But, truer words.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you for having me. This has been fun. And as mentioned, there are stories we just didn't have time to get to. So perhaps on a future occasion, I can come spin a couple other yarns for you.
Oh God, yes. Okay, I'm like this. I'm like, please, stories.
I got some stories.
Do you have any last bit of advice for the listeners?
Yeah, I mean, this is general advice. I frequently have people asking me about getting into the line of work, and there's lots of the advice that comes from that question can be delivered on lots of different levels. But I recently was able to talk to some folks who were interested in getting in, already doing some work as an actor and interested in getting into anime. And there's some basic, steps you want to follow about getting involved in that. But it occurred to me as I was delivering some of the advice is that, it's kind of universally applicable. And the advice was, when you get your first break and it's time to go in for your first job, you got booked, you go in then, you've got, if you're interested in a career in this field, I think there's kind of 4 key elements that contribute to your success in that. You've got to have talent. Presumably, you're not getting involved in it unless you feel like you've got that covered off on. You've got to have dedication, devotion, be ready to work. If you're ready to put the work in, a lot will happen for you. In our field in particular, it's important to have some passion for the subject matter. And this is something, and John Swasey and I talk about this equally. When we first started, we were actors doing lots of different kinds of acting, and this was one more kind of acting. And it was, it was an acting gig. It took us a while to realize what we were kind of getting into, as it were. It took a while. We just started to meet the fan base later and understand that the anime fandom is different than any other kind of consumer of art out there. It's an art form like many, many other art forms, but this particular fan base of this particular art form, there's nothing quite like them. And the passion with which they absorb what's being delivered. So that comes across. If you are a performer in this field and you have a passion for the subject matter, for the show that you're in, or the kind of shows that you're doing, that makes all the difference in the world in terms of how it's received by anime fans. So passion is important. And then kindness, really just being a good person, is probably the key ingredient to this, to all of it. Like, be a professional. Like, it's great to be talented and it's great to have a good work ethic and be ready to just bust your butt. Like, that's important. But, when you go in to work with professionals in this space, make sure you're on time, make sure you come prepared. Don't waste anyone's time while you're there. Everyone is on a timeline, especially in an anime studio. They got deadlines. Like, they're like, let's keep moving. So you want to make sure you're not a person that's holding up that process. So come prepared, be professional, and then be kind. Like, be the sort of person that they want to have back just because you're delightful. That is something that I think can carry over to almost any situation. Like, if you're getting involved in something that is interesting to you, you want to be a part of this world. Do your homework, like know what it is that they're looking for, so you can provide that. And then as the icing on that cake, be good and kind and pleasant, because there are, you'll find as you're working in, as the example in the field of performance as an actor, like, if I audition for a role and there are maybe 4 other guys that also audition for the role, and all of us deliver a great audition, and the director can tell all of us have the required level of talent to do it, and they like the choices we made as actors. And so the director's sitting there with 5 strong candidates for one role and be like, well, I've worked with 2 of these 5 actors before. Should we branch out, take a chance on somebody new just for the sake of some fresh blood and a different experience? Or shall we go with one of the people that we know is going to be fun to work with? It's usually not a difficult decision. Like, sometimes the allure of something new is strong, and maybe it's important. Like, sometimes fresh blood is important to the creative process. Noted. But also, if this is a role that requires 20 hours of recording, the director's going to be like, I'm going to be in a booth with this person for 20 hours. One of these actors I know is just a good person. Like, so I know it'll be a fun experience. Maybe I want to go with that. So that is my advice, and I hope it's applicable to other areas. But it's certainly been something that I found is important in our line of work. Be a good person.
Y'all heard it from the man yourself. Okay, just be a good person. Okay, anybody can work. Anybody can say 2 + 2 is 4, but you can't teach passion. And you actually can't teach kindness. It's something that has to come out organically from you. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us this week. And thank you, Jay, for sharing so much gold with us.
Oh, Missy, it was a pleasure. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me on. Was a delight to visit with you. And like I said, maybe somewhere down the road, give it another try.
Oh, sheesh. If you leave the screen door open, I'm coming with beer and pizza. You already know. You already told me how the sausage is made, so I already know how to get it.
Invited the vampire into my home. Okay, I get it.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us this week, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Peace.